But to move on to other rappers that we don't want to be, apparently something happened to Tory Lanez recently. I don't know if this is specifically what it's about. I'd imagine it is because it was 2 days ago. So, Mr. Sean C, let me know what happened. I'm pretty sure I heard he got like stabbed 14 times or some shit. But there's many reasons to not be Tory Lanez.
Of having it all not being enough. I got to take you back to a time where the Tory Lanez name was something that was almost like a diamond in a rough. Like I found Tory Lanez music in like 2014 when I was at work and I'm scrambling through my playlist and I'm scrambling around and I found a YouTube.
I never liked Tory Lanez. I came across Tory Lanez 2017, 2018, I think, something like that, 2016 maybe, when he was beefing with Dax. Because I found Dax first, and then I heard that Tory Lanez was beefing with Dax. This is how I found out about him. So I never liked him from the beginning. He got stomped in the first place. But he does this thing where he'll beef with rappers and then be friends with them. And then beef with another rapper and then like kind of go up the ladder that way by beefing and then being friends. Like directly for a while. It did the same thing with Joyner Lucas. It was really weird.
Link that linked me to some dude with a receding hairline, fat ass forehead. I mean, golly.
Yeah.
When I saw it on the cover, I was stunned. But I was listening to bro rap.
And thinning,
and
too.
I was hearing some of his remixes and some of his freestyles. And I'm like, oh, man, nah, this guy's next. He's the truth. He's one of those. Like, he's a good alternative to the mainstream that I'm hearing right now. If he blows up, I wouldn't be mad at all. And then it started to happen. Started seeing his name more. He dropped his first album. I even have that on my original YouTube channel. Point is, I feel like I watched bro's rise, in the same way that I watched Logic come up. I felt that same way about Tory. This is a guy with talent, and I know he's got a future. So when you see guys like that get an opportunity, it's like, damn, even if there is a record that you come out with that I'm not in love with, the fact that you are a success story, you're able to monetize your talents, you're able to profit off of your gifts. That is the definition of success to me. And when I see you in any capacity or in any stretch of the word thriving, even if you're making records that I'm not a huge fan of, I'm still happy and I have a smile on my face on the inside or out because you are the definition of what it means to not give up and to keep thriving. I've watched you do it.
That's
I understand fan bases and fanatics, I get when they feel like they're a part of something bigger than them when they're watching somebody literally start from the dirt. When you see something like that, you're like, all your problems are solved. You've got nothing else to do, nothing else to work on. I watched you climb that ladder. That should really be your biggest obstacle. But success ain't enough for a lot of people. And I need everybody that's watching this, men specifically, to understand the money does not solve the problem. The problem is something that's deep-rooted, deep-seated, something
Facts.
that you need to address, something that you need to overcome, something that you need to get over. And there's no amount of studio sessions that can compensate for genuine resolutions to whatever issues that you're going through, whether those issues be anger, short.
That's why Drake never fucking learns. After all this beef shit, after everything that happened the past year and a half or so, he's still putting out the same kind of music. He's still doing the same stuff. He's still doing the fucking whatever he does, and he's like he just doesn't fucking learn. And he's too rich, he's too famous, he's too much in his own head, and it's just never enough.
Temper, trauma in whatever format.
Tory. Oh yeah, Sean C. I've been watching Sean C for a while, boy. I've been watching him when the MGK and Eminem shit happened. I think that's when I first came across him. I came across a lot of rap reactors through the whole MGK Eminem beef.
Defensive mechanisms, you
did too, Tende?
all of those
shit.
things along the way and actively. I have this saying that I put out there a long time ago that it's easier to run face first into a glass door and not have a whole bunch of baggage on you when you ultimately have to get up and fix yourself. Because everyone's gonna go through life and
True.
you're gonna have that moment where you walk and run face first into that glass door or into that brick wall. And when it happens, it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, I remember when he had like the really shitty mic. The really like the he had like no microphone and the camera was at a really weird angle, and he was just kind of just there doing his thing, listening to his music. It was really real awkward stages. I remember that.
Easier to get up and not
Yeah,
have to
before he
pick up
grew
a
his hair
whole
out,
bunch of
before he
bullshit
got
on
his own
your back
apartment.
along the way.
Yeah.
You don't have time to fix it.
I remember every stage of his fucking studio with all of his fucking vinyl wall collection shit. Every time he changed it around, I'd always notice.
Later, or suppress those emotions or those feelings, and because run face first into that glass door or into that brick wall. And when it happens, it's a hell of a lot easier to get up and not have to pick up a whole bunch of bullshit on your back along the way. You don't have time to fix it later or suppress those emotions or those feelings, and because it'll manifest in the ugliest way humanly imaginable and get you into the worst situations possible. Here
Look at
we are
Diddy
with Tory Lanez as a huge example. Someone who allowed his emotions and ego to step far beyond human decency and threaten the life of a woman that he was dating. This guy was so cocky, so arrogant, so egotistical that he thought he could get away with it and gaslight the person that he did it to. When he ultimately went to prison for it, his fan base thought he was some type of martyr. He convinced them album after album that he was bigger than the program. He added this divine, almost biblical-like importance to his own career and life, as if to almost religiously justify his actions. This level of delusion and accountability isn't uncommon among success stories like a Tory Lanez.
Delusion is the most common form of mental illness.
To his own career and life, as if to almost religiously justify his actions. This level of delusion and accountability isn't uncommon among success stories like a Tory Lanez. And obviously to the average person, you could argue he made a stupid decision, but to a guy that's been watching his career grow and flourish over the last decade, to me it means something much more. It means despite the hard life you lived up until this point, the clawing and the digging and the scraping at scraps, just to get a wink of affordable studio time to make your first big hit, to keep being in the studio every night and day, the blood, sweat, and tears it took you to get to this position, to all be thrown away over a dumb decision, to qualify that as just a simple mistake or an error in judgment, is overlooking whatever problem ultimately drove him to this point that he was willing to overlook for so many years until he got here. Yo, I'm just reminding you, those little moments where you might go off the rails, those little moments where you don't feel like you recognize yourself, those moments where you need to take a second and calm down, check in with that. Look at it. Make sure it's not a big problem. Make sure it's not affecting your relationships. Make sure it's not affecting your mental. Make sure it's not preventing you from progressing, because these things are going to happen again. You're going to find yourself in similar conflicts, dealing with similar issues, unless you take them seriously when you notice the problems. And don't be arrogant and think that you can take it all on yourself, because you can't. This is why you treat people with kindness. This is why you treat people well. This is why you treat people with respect. Not because it's just a nice thing to do, but practically speaking, you are going to need people to help you too in the future. And when you're dealing with shit that you might not be equipped to handle on your own, that is when you start tapping shoulders, asking for help. That's when you start looking around, asking for guidance. And I know this is a big one, but that's when you unfortunately start asking for forgiveness, start asking for patience. This guy Tory Lanez was just poked up in prison. An artist that I watch go from doing remixes of other niggas' songs to having his first big hit with Say It. Try to tell me in 2013 that the guy that I was listening to that made that hit single will be in prison getting poked up a decade later for shooting a woman that he claimed to care for. And niggas want to tell me it was a mistake. You just gotta keep going. For what? This is what ignoring the problem is gonna get you. This is what constant enablers around you is gonna get you. This is what yes men around you is gonna end up. I'm not trying to insinuate this stabbing is in any way related to Megan Thee Stallion either. I don't think that has any correlation at all.
Not likely, no.
But I know for a fact you wouldn't be in this position in prison or in this situation in any capacity had you had a better grasp of who you are as a person and took actionable steps to prevent those pitfalls from entering into your relationships, affecting things like your judgment and your ability to care for others. I'm waiting for the skeptics.
Or just admit it was a mistake.
I'm waiting for those cynical individuals that don't believe anything.
Take the
L. Don't take some things at face value. Tory Lanez was stabbed. I'm waiting for y'all to come to the front and question whether or not it's true. I'm waiting for you to come to the front and question the evidence. I'm waiting for you to come to the front and ask.
I wasn't going to question shit.
I want the pictures. The how did you get stabbed, but you don't need surgery niggas. Show me the shiv the COs took off the other inmate if he was really poked up for real. How you know he wasn't slipping on semen in there and fell on the knife himself? And I know those talking points won't be used, and they'll instead most likely be victimized and further turned into this martyr who's had an injustice done against him that wasn't due to his own act in any capacity. It was all because of a label that was afraid of his success that needed so badly to thwart him. Some of y'all that are watching this vid are talented. I promise you. You got gifts, you got skills, you got things that...
Did I see the news today? No. This video's from 2 days ago. If there's an update, we'll watch that next.
will become very profitable for you in the near future. I know. I looked at some of y'all material before. Some of you are great future producers, artists, directors, writers, speakers. Deal with those issues now. Deal with the baggage now while you have time to focus on it before it manifests into something extremely ugly and puts you in positions that you cannot get out of on your own. Don't be the what happened to so-and-so guy. Develop a genuine connection with the people that are supporting you, the following that you earn from whatever gifts that you have. And I mean a genuine connection, not one based off of a narrative that you're the face of now because there's a whole bunch of niggas who hate women decided to collectively get together and use you as the face of the movement. And I would at least respect them niggas, man, if they said, hey, let's pool our money together and make sure that Tory Lanez son wants for nothing. No, they'll move on to the next guy because it's not about the people, it's about the narrative. Tory Lanez, an artist that has some of the most momentum in the world, now having his life at risk in prison. This dude got a family, a son, a seed, a future he should be nurturing. And niggas talking to me about he made a mistake. Deal with the issues now. Fix it now. Acknowledge it now while you still have time, while you're not distracted by anything, while your attention isn't on anything else. Work on it now. Ask for help, ask for assistance, and tell people to hold you accountable. Tory Lanez in his current situation are the product of neglect, arrogance, and ego. An easily avoidable, life-altering decision. Shit crazy, man.
Shit is mad wild. He ain't wrong about that. So, is he like... So, he got poked up, but is he like dead or is he like in critical condition? Because I read in like passing that he got his like lung punctured twice. Former bodyguard into the chat. Who the hell is this free Tory? Megan Live. Didn't age well. Update. We'll see, guys. This is what we're talking about. I know if there's a video. The other girl who was in the bodyguards come forward and said that she was the one who shot Meg. Ooh, okay, I'm gonna look that up. 14 hours ago. What? Tory Lanez case. Father speaks out. Tory Lanez attacked by prison who killed his underage girlfriend. Huh? What? Tory Lanez attacked by prisoner who killed his underage girlfriend with a shotgun. Tory Lanez killed some underage girl with a shotgun? What the fuck are we talking about? The Lanz collapse is what I saw. That's a long ass video. Hold on. Let me get something like not an hour and a half long. No. Alright, act. Alright, act. Wait, what is this?
Okay.
Reacts to Tory Lanez team explosive press conference saying Kesley. It's a long ass title. That's the longest shit.
All right, everybody.
It's fine. We're good. We're here.
First off, my name is Caesar McDowell. I am the CEO and co-founder of Unite the People. We're a nonprofit organization.
This is the guy who
that
stabbed
promotes
him?
social justice as well as provides affordable legal services for the underserved community here in the state of California. Today, we want to thank everybody for coming out, all of the press, all of the fans, everyone that's here today. We want to say thank you for coming. Today, we're going to hear some really, really compelling new evidence that you've never heard before. Our legal team will explain all of that to you. We will have updates on Tory Lanez, Mr. Peterson, on how he's doing. It's really sad to see the situation that he's in.
True.
And we think it's time, enough is enough. It's time to bring the brother home. So with that, I would like to bring up our lead consultant, Mr. Walter Roberts.
I guess we'll see, right? Let's try to go in blind, right?
We are here today to bring to your attention some information Unite the People believes is exculpatory in Mr. Daystar Peterson's case, professionally known as Tory Lanz. Recently, we've been made aware that a member of the media, Mr. Gianno Caldwell, was working on an op-ed for the New York Post regarding Mr. Peterson's innocence. During his work on that op-ed, he became aware of some information in Unite the People's possession regarding a statement that was given to Unite the People by someone with information relevant to that case. The New York Post recently reached out to the prior district attorney, George Gascon, Megan Pete and her representatives, and Kelsey Harris and her representatives. The only party that responded last week was Megan Pete's representatives with a request for more information. A few days later, Mr. Peterson's brutally attacked in his jail cell. Unite the People represents Daystar Peterson in his appellate process. We filed an appellate brief and a writ of habeas.
Is that coincidental, you think? Or does that just happen to happen?
For more information.
They responded for more information from
last week
Megan's
was Megan
side.
Pete's representatives with a request for more information. A few days later, Mr. Peterson's brutally attacked in his jail cell.
Now I don't know if he means to make it sound this way, but it sounds like he's saying, like, because this happened in lieu of this time, then he got stabbed, or he's just putting the time frame together. It might just sound that way with the way he's talking. I don't know. It just hit my ear weird.
Unite the People represents Daystar Peterson in his appellate process. We filed an appellate brief and a writ of habeas corpus on his behalf. The district attorney's office has already responded. The case is fully briefed. We're just waiting for the appellate court's decision. We were willing to wait for the appellate process to play out, but given that brutal, unprovoked attack, we felt it necessary to come here today to provide you with this information. It is our intention.
Can we get the information as to why he was stabbed? Like, who stabbed him?
To either pardon
and we can get that information, then we can,
so that when he recovers
see if
from
it's
this
correlated
attack,
or
he's not
not.
returned to a jail cell, but that he's allowed to go home and recover.
I'm sorry,
Not
say it
long
again?
ago, he recovers from this attack. He's not returned to a jail cell, but that he's allowed to go home and recover. Not long ago, Unite the People was approached by a gentleman named Bradley James. Mr. James informed us he was working as the bodyguard and driver for Ms. Kelsey Harris during Mr. Peterson's trial. As such, he was in close proximity and he had privy to conversations she was having with her husband and others. Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People, and that he was doing it because his conscience would not let him not speak and leave a man in prison for something he did not do. Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was a witness to the conversation Ms. Harris had, where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times, Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 more times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun. This statement aligns with the statement of the only non-party witness to the case, Mr. Sean Kelly, who at trial testified he saw 2 women fighting, 2 men break up the fight, 1 man grabbed the other one's arm, gunshots came from the passenger side.
It's pretty consistent.
Passenger side is where Ms. Harris was sitting. This further iterates that Mr. Peterson did not shoot Miss Pete, did not shoot at Miss Pete, or did not assault Miss Pete. It's just another irregularity in a list of irregularities in this case. For example, there were 3 potential suspects in the car that night, and yet the only DNA sample was taken of Mr. Peterson, even though unknown DNA was found on the gun. Why wasn't Miss Harris's DNA?
It was 2 suspects because Meg can't be a suspect for herself.
Why wasn't the driver of the car, Mr.
I see
Jaquan
what you're saying.
Smith's DNA taken? Or was it taken, and again, simply not given to the defense? We don't know. It should have been taken. It is Unite the People's
It should have been,
understanding,
yes.
regular LAPD practice at a crime scene like that, anybody who's there, DNA is taken.
Absolutely.
Another irregularity. Why, at Ms. Harris's police interview, was a non-lawyer, non-family member record company executive allowed to participate? Highly irregular situation. Normally, we see cases, strangers are not allowed in these things, but it was in this case. All of these things point to the highly irregular nature of his trial and his conviction. It is our contention that he was wrongly convicted. And while we at first were willing to let the process play out, it is our contention now that if he is not
Fair.
pardoned or released promptly, he may never come out. And that would be the ultimate injustice, is that he gets
It
killed
would.
in prison for something he did not do.
Yeah, it would.
At this time, I'd like to bring up Mr. Gianno Caldwell, a media member who was working on that op.
It's a question, though. That's a recent statement, yes? Why wasn't that said earlier? Where was this person, or why wasn't that said before? Like, that, okay, could we have, apparently we had like the one witness who saw it from a distance, and then why didn't she just say that before? Or did she say that and just no one fucking listened the first time? Because I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
I'd like to bring up Mr. Gianno Caldwell, a media member who was working on that op-ed for the New York Post. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Good morning. Thank you for coming today. My name is
Oh,
Gianno
man, you do
Caldwell.
not have a watermelon
Spelled
tie.
Gianno Caldwell, Caldwell. I am the founder of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety at caldwellinstitute.org. I am also a member of the press for almost a decade now.
He looks and sounds
I've been
exactly
looking
the
into Daystar
part.
Peterson's
He
case for
sounds
almost
so
6
tired.
months now, professionally known as Tory Lanz.
Exactly. Hold on. He probably got. Yeah. Yeah, who knows if he or she or if any of them. Because that's a whole thing about, is it he said, she said. Like, if there's no cameras and there's no whatever, then it's hard to tell. But if she's saying this now, it's like, well, fuck. Would you feel guilty now? But no, wait. She said that after she got stabbed or during the whole information back and forth? If that's what the information was, and then he got stabbed, as that is just crazy timing. But still, why did you say that how many years ago? Why'd you wait this fucking long? It's kind of like the whole Emmett Till situation. Because she lied, and then she confessed that she lied, what, like 5 years ago?
And after reviewing the evidence, the reporting, and the legal analysis, I've come to the conclusion that Tory Lanez was railroaded by the former district attorney, George Gascon. He was also wrongly convicted. I believe if Jesus Christ was Tory Lanez's attorney, George Gascon would do whatever in his power to ensure that Tory Lanez lost that case. Tory Lanez's defense team
That's what
have
lawyers
alleged
do.
the withholding of exculpatory evidence,
I said that's what defense lawyers'
prosecutorial
job is.
misconduct, among other issues that I was compelled to write an opinion piece for the New York Post. It is true that last week, the New York Post editors reached out to 3 parties, one being George Gascon, Megan Pete's team, and Kelsey Harris. It is also true that Megan's team was the only ones that responded back for that request for comment. I had some glaring questions, and that was the reason for this op-ed. Things didn't make any sense to me, many issues in this case, and I was shocked by the lack of interest from the media to ask very simple questions. There were multiple people with gunshot residue on their hands that night. Why didn't all individuals have the residue tested, their DNA tested on the weapon? That's a legitimate question. According to the prosecution, Tory was excluded from the clip of the gun, and according to Tory's defense team, they said DNA analysis showed that there was a 0.01% chance that Tory touched the actual gun itself.
Wow, 0.01.
Another piece that stood out to me.
That's specific.
The call that the prosecution alleged Tory made confessing to a crime. I listened to that call. I'm sure many of you have as well. I didn't hear a confession.
I don't
but
remember.
What
I didn't
really
hear it.
shocked me about it is if my best friend was shot maliciously by someone just 2 to 3 hours before, I wouldn't have answered the call, or if I did, I wouldn't calmly have a conversation with the individual of it. And certainly, I would ask, why did you shoot my friend? And more importantly, I would never have given you my current location out of fear of you finishing the job. That was something that stood out to me. I also, in my op-ed, discussed Kelsey Harris pleading the Fifth Amendment. She wasn't accused of anything by Megan Pete or the police, and to my knowledge, she wasn't under...
She just pled the Fifth. Is that why she didn't say anything before? She just didn't want to answer the fucking question? Because she didn't want to be blamed for shooting Meg Thee Stallion? Oh my fucking God.
Any investigation, so why plead the Fifth? What also shocked me is the prosecution gave her
Because she didn't want to take
immunity.
accountability
For what?
for it.
What did she do? Is there an allegation of her doing something? I'm not aware of that. Maybe some of you can answer that question today. During the time of trial, George Gascon, just to take you back to where we were at that particular point, he had just barely won a recall attempt. He lost support in many key demographics of voters. Crime was up in Los Angeles County. And this case would have been a silver bullet for him potentially winning. His policies obviously were bad and people were harmed. So that didn't happen, and thank God it didn't happen. At the heart of this injustice is the misuse of gun enhancement charges, a sentencing tool intended for the most dangerous and violent offenders. In Tory Lanez case, these enhancements were not supported by evidence. But George Gascon, interestingly enough, who is someone who regularly would drop enhancements or not recommend them, chose to provide enhancements to Tory. And in his case, in any given situation, according to legal analysts I've spoken with, he would do 1 or 3 years if he did it without the enhancement.
Right.
That's interesting. Why did George Gascon choose to pursue these enhancements? You know, there's cases I've been looking through which George Gascon has pursued, many in which he utilized these enhancements. A couple come to mind that I would like to reference here. One, Raymond Danger Gonzalez, a Mexican mafia gang member involved in a premeditated murder of 2 young men in 2017. Despite the brutality of the crime, Gascon didn't recommend enhancements. You premeditated murdered a teenager and another individual, brutal crime. Why would you recommend enhancements, but you would recommend them for Tory? That doesn't make a lot of sense. He also didn't pursue sentencing enhancements for the senseless murder of General Hospital actor Johnny Victor in Los Angeles in 2024. There's a lot of issues with this case. Many, I think, that the media should be pursuing all angles of it. We should not allow there to be unanswered questions. We should pursue open questions without fear or favor to anyone. That includes Mr. Tory Lanez. In his letter from the Birmingham jail, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Cut one channel.
If we take those words seriously, we must act when injustice is allowed to fester in plain sight. I founded the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety after my innocent teenage brother was murdered in Chicago on June 24, 2022. I stand firmly for public safety, for victims' rights, and for holding criminals accountable. But justice also demands that we protect the innocent and stand against politically motivated prosecutions.
Absolutely.
This is what I believe to happen here. When we imprison the innocent while violent offenders walk free, which is what George Gascon has often done, we undermine the very foundation of our legal system. Mr. Peterson was never given a fair trial, free from bias, political interference, and media-driven pressure. His continued incarceration erodes public trust and diverts focus from the real work of keeping our community safe. Further, while incarcerated, Mr. Peterson was recently stabbed in prison, as many of you know, a tragic incident that underscores the urgency of this situation and the risk to his life while this case remains unaddressed. Governor Newsom, I respectfully urge you to issue a pardon for Daystar Peterson, known as Tory Lanz, in a full and impartial review of his case. California must not be a state where justice is driven by headlines instead of evidence. And in the case of George Gascon, that was often the case. So I encourage everyone here to go to CaldwellInstitute.org, CALDWELL, Institute, INSTITUTE.org, and sign the petition. This petition asks for the governor to pardon Tory Lanz. Thank you.
Jesus Christ.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I know there's a lot of noise in the media going on. With
Get your snacks,
stories,
guys.
But I think that this is one of the most important stories happening right now today regarding our Justice Department. My name is Diana London. I'm the CEO of the Secret Weapon Agency, which is a crisis communication firm. And I'm
Why does that sound like something out of Marvel?
CEO of the Secret Weapon Agency, which is
The Secret Weapon Agency? That sounds like something that's going to premiere on Disney Plus next week.
a crisis communication firm. And I'm also the CEO of a company called London Global Strategies. I am a member of the media as well. I'm a commentator on a few networks, and I also serve as an advisor for Giano's Institute and also another company called Promising People that is fighting to reduce the recidivism rate in this country and also to correct our criminal justice laws. As a woman who has worked in Congress on criminal justice reform, I deeply believe in law and order. I've worked alongside law enforcement. I've drafted policy to reduce violent crime. I've seen what accountability should look like. But I also know the legal system without integrity is no justice at all. When we get it wrong, when our courts fail the people they're meant to protect, we don't just ruin lives. We erode trust in the rule of law itself. That's why I'm speaking out today for Daystar Peterson, better known to the world as Tory Lanz. This isn't about fame. It isn't about celebrity. It's about fairness.
Yeah.
Tory Lanz doesn't want special treatment. He's demanding equal treatment. And if we Americans still believe in a system where guilty must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, then we must admit this case raises serious concerns. Because the truth is, Tory Lanz is serving a 10-year sentence for a crime that evidence, which laid out here today, overwhelmingly suggests he did not commit.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the night in question.
And
like
a
Giano
recent
was just
confession.
talking about in the attorneys. As the attorneys laid out here today, the prosecution failed to produce a single shred of forensic evidence tying Tory to the actual gun. His fingerprints weren't on it. His DNA was later found to be 100% nearly excluded from the gun, as shown in the worksheet that was provided to the defense late on the eve of the actual trial. After making a request,
You know, I was going to let it slide, but I kind of can't let it slide. I've never heard 100% nearly before in my life.
for that very document. After trial, looking at this evidence, there is a 0.01% chance Tory's DNA was on the firearm. That's a difficult statistic to equate with
Yeah, that's
the
what I was
story
saying
as told
earlier.
by the
Very
prosecution,
specific.
which may be why this was not present in trial. In fact, there were 3 people that night at the
It
scene
wasn't
who
in
tested
trial?
positive for gunshot residues. One of
Man.
those was Kelsey Harris, as Giano
I should have been
mentioned,
active back
the
then.
assistant to Megan Pete. According to multiple sworn testaments that you've heard today, including one from the bodyguard and driver with Harris on the 2 days of the trial, Harris admitted to firing the weapon during an emotional outburst. Tory intervened to de-escalate, not to harm. It is important to note, the police did not fingerprint anyone else who had gunshot residue on them that night, only Tory. Why? Even more troubling, the investigation itself was a disaster. Bullet fragments disappeared, the gun's serial number was sealed, a move that blocked the defense from investigating ownership. Police failed to follow
See, I'm going to just turn you down a little bit and talk.
standard
See,
procedures. Why?
This is why I
Did
don't have a
mark shell
face cam.
casings on the road
You
and
don't
didn't
need to
test
be here right
others
now.
involved that night
If
with
you're
DNA.
talking, sure,
This wasn't
but you're not
justice.
talking. Your
It was a
face isn't
rush
even
to
moving.
judgment.
You know what I mean?
Worse still, the
Like you could like
prosecution
turn the
knew
camera off
case was
while you're not
thin.
talking and turn it back
So
on
what
when you have
did they
something to
do?
say.
They tacked on gun enhancements, just like they spoke about. The charges, these gun enhancements are meant for gang shootouts and armed robberies
Right.
to inflate the charges and turn a flimsy accusation into a decade-long prison sentence. Enhancements are a powerful tool against violent offenders, but using them in a case with no forensic evidence, murky
just insane.
testimony, and the defendant with no criminal history, that's very important to point out. He had no criminal history. That's not justice. That's a political stunt.
Yeah, it is.
Let's be blunt. This prosecution had everything to do with headlines and very little to do with truth. It was about symbolism, not substance. And that should concern every single one of you here today and in this country. Because when the facts take a back seat to identity, when due process is sacrificed for public spectacle, we all lose. Just yesterday, a Los Angeles court
I remember when
ruled
the story was first
Menendez
coming around,
brothers, who brutally murdered their
and
parents, are now eligible
people,
for parole after
the first
serving
people to
35
start
years.
defending
They admitted to the crime.
Tory
Tory
Lanez
Lanez, who killed no
got
one,
a
and
huge
still
wave of
remains
criticism
innocent today,
from feminists saying like,
whose
oh, you're
case
going to
is
just
riddled with inconsistencies
you know,
and prosecutorial
defend
failures,
like
is
female
expected to
abuse or some
serve a
shit.
decade?
But that's
How
that's
is
when the
that justice?
politicizing really started.
I've worked in federal criminal justice policy. I helped pass the First Step Act during President Trump's first term. I've spent years focusing on ending recidivism, building rehabilitation pipelines, and protecting the innocent from institutional overreach. I didn't fight for reform just to see the system weaponized against someone because he's famous or inconvenient. And let's be clear. If a high-profile black man with no prior violent convictions can be railroaded this easily, what hope is it for the everyday American who lacks his resources?
True.
Some people may want to dismiss this
Especially in
today
California,
as
yeah.
noise. But as a conservative, we are a movement that claims to care about over-criminalization, prosecutorial abuse, and restoring faith
Like,
in
no
American
joke. Is California still on
institutions.
fire?
Well, here it is.
I really
laid
don't
bare
know.
in front of you. The prosecution manipulated the narrative. They buried key facts. They got the conviction they wanted, but not the truth we all deserve. As Gianno mentioned,
Yeah, it
Dr.
really
Martin
seems like
Luther
that, doesn't it?
King Jr. warned us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this case proves it. If we let this stand, if we accept a conviction based on emotion rather than evidence, we abandon the very foundation of our system, that all men are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The timing of these events raised disturbing questions to me, and I think they all should to you as well. After over 2 years in prison without incident, Tory was stabbed 14 times just days after a major national news outlet reached out to Megan Pete's team, Kelsey Harris, and former DA George Gascon about a story on new evidence in this case. You don't have to believe in conspiracies to see the pattern. When evidence was about to come to light, Tory was nearly killed. So let's stop
see what you're
pretending
saying.
This is complicated.
I see what you're
treating
saying.
This like some cultural war flashpoint.
But it is jail. Right. Let's be pretty frank. You don't need a reason to stab somebody in jail. You can just stab somebody for having a bad day. Right. Let's be completely frank. And I'm pretty sure, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, he found his own little niche in, like, a group in prison, just like everyone else does, and then they got into some kind of fight. There's a million reasons why someone gets stabbed the fuck up in jail. But, like, I see why you're gonna frame. Like, it would make sense. Be like, okay, well, I heard that, like, they're talking again, so we'll get this nigga now before he gets out, right? I could see that, but, like, I would need to see the evidence of that. Otherwise, it's completely coincidental.
This is about a man, a father, a son, Daystar Peterson, who has sat in a prison cell for over a year based on a case that wouldn't pass the smell test in any honest courtroom. The prison system can no longer guarantee his safety, and that alone should be
I don't think
grounds
we need
for
to watch the
immediate
whole thing.
action. But combine that with the overwhelming evidence of a botched
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out.
Big Papa.
that claims to value you.
Big Papa.
Good morning, everybody.
Oh, he said that.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out and lending your cameras to the world. We appreciate you being here. My name is Sunstar Peterson, well known as the father of Tory Lanz, but his family affectionately knows him as Daystar Peterson. This may seem not even to matter today, but it does to me. The reason why he bears the name Daystar is because I was scheduled to speak in a conference in Washington, D.C. back in the early 2000s. Back in the late 90s.
He speaks like a pastor.
My wife and I stayed in a hotel across the river in Northern Virginia. I was up praying before that conference
there
that
you
I
go.
was supposed to
Religious
speak
man.
at that
Gotcha.
evening. As I paced back and forth in my hotel suite praying, I began to quote the scripture from 2 Peter chapter 1, and it states, "For you would do well to take heed as unto a light shining in a dark place, until the day dawns and the day star arises in your heart." I didn't know whether it was a boy or girl in my late wife's womb.
Oh.
But I heard the Holy Spirit said to me, that is the name of your child. That's why he bears that name today. Now we're standing in the United States of America, land of the free and the home of the brave. I have watched from afar, being a Canadian. I have watched as presidents, innumerable, and other officials place their hand on the Bible and swear a sacred oath
Dude
to
got
uphold
fucking microscopes.
justice, to uphold truth, because that's what justice demands. So before I go any further, based on a courtroom that I stood in 508 days or so ago and heard my son convicted, is a court in the federal reality of things that also holds the Bible higher than judges. And so I'm going to pray a very short prayer before I get started here today. And I'm going to pray that in the spirit of when Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, stood before Pontius Pilate. Pontius said, "Why do you not speak? Do you not know that I have the power to crucify you or to let you go free. It was only one of the times that Jesus ever spoke. He said, you would not have power over me unless God Almighty gave it to you today. And I have come to bear witness of the truth. Upon which Pontius Pilate replied, what is truth? That question was never answered in Pilate's judgment hall. But I answer it for you today because Jesus Christ himself told us what the truth was. Truth is not a philosophy. It's not an ideology. It's not a doctrine. And it certainly is not a religion. Truth is a person. His name is Jesus Christ, who said, I am the way, the truth that leads you to life. Father, upon the basis of your word today that this nation was founded upon, I ask that every ear that needs to be opened, including the ear of the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, I'm even asking today that in the midst of Mr. Trump's busy schedule as President of the United States, that this would come into his hearing. And so, Father, I ask you today, by your Spirit, because you're the only reason why my son is yet alive.
Facts.
Have your way. And let this be glorifying your name. I thank you for it in Jesus' name.
Amen.
So my name is Sunstar Carlisle Peterson. I come to you today in the capacity of an apostle of Jesus Christ. A word from the first century in our times, it would simply mean ambassador of Christ. So when I stand before you, I don't stand here to speak my own words. I represent the kingdom. It was apostle of Jesus Christ. A word from the first century in our times, it would simply mean ambassador of Christ.
That's funny. Well, not funny, but like, my name means Christ bearer, biblically.
So when I stand before you, I don't stand here to speak my own words. I represent a kingdom, and I am under authority to speak only what God allows. First and foremost, I really do want to thank you again, the press corps, and all of you who have vlogs and channels on YouTube or wherever you stream from. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
I would like to thank, in fact, all of those who identify with the name Umbrella as One Umbrella. It was actually launched so that my family would not just be the ones benefiting from whatever fame or fortune, but so that all people, anywhere that need a shelter could come under that umbrella. That's the reason why it was launched by Daystar's brother initially, who is known as Wolfgang Peterson. So I thank all of you who have always been an
That's always a
encouragement to
dope
us,
ass name.
who have stood with us. Those of you standing here today with
Wolfgang
free Tory
Peterson.
T-shirts. Jano, can I have that T-shirt right there, please? Those of you who are wearing these and remembering this person, because I want you to understand that from the beginning of this, I stood as far back as 2021, and I watched where a spin doctor for the NBA, now high-powered attorney out of New York, Alex Spiro, ran a campaign to turn my son into a monster in the eyes of the world. At that point in time, God said to us, there is a time to be silent and there's a time to speak. We chose to be silent. And now we've been silent for way too long. The hour demands that we speak. One of the reasons why I stood silent is because I trusted in God, but I also did not want any blowback to affect my son, who was sitting in the belly of the beast. That's why I chose not to speak at that time. I am his father, and that is the second capacity in which I stand before you today. as the spokesperson and mouthpiece for my family. Tory has 7 brothers and sisters. He has
Jeez.
5 brothers. He makes up the 5, I'm sorry. And there are 3 sisters.
That's a Canadian.
So today I would like to
sorry.
share a few things with you as well. I want to dispel a few rumors because I've been asked to by my son, Daystar, aka Tory Lanz. Number 1, Daystar does not have a drinking problem. He does not have a drinking problem, and that was not the reason why this situation happened. He was not out on the yard as it was about 6:30 in the morning, and cells were just opened for them to be able to go out to breakfast. On the Thursday
You can
prior
drink
to
in
this
jail?
incident, I
Oh,
was
wait,
called
toilet one.
by him, and I was told of the impending threat. And my family and I
Oh.
huddled and did what we always do. We prayed. We get together every single
So
day.
you had a feeling?
And we pray. Sometimes it is twice per day. Wherever we are in the world, at a certain time, we're on our phones and we are praying. We pray for him. We pray for you. Because our mandate is not about violence. We're not here for vendetta. We're not here for any of those things. My son, as I stood with him in the hospital room, on the first day, my wife being present, said, "Dad, I'm not holding any animosity against this guy. I don't want to take any action against him. Whatever the system does, the system does." But that is his stance, and that is our stance. Might I go a little bit further? Because this will not be the first time I've said this publicly. I bear Megan the Stallion no ought at all. In fact, we have prayed for her on many occasions in our times of prayer. So this monster that Alex Spiro tried to create, and when I stood in the courtroom on that day and heard a corrupt prosecutor dismiss the fact that so many people, it was overwhelming the amount of people that sent letters to their office and were called to testify before the courts as they were considering sentence, which had already been decided, and the judge blatantly showed on that day that it really didn't matter what anybody said. It was supposed to be a forum in which it would be decided based on all the extenuating circumstances, etc. But it had already been decided behind closed doors. It's so funny that there is indeed a woman who has made it her life's mission to be the whip in the press or on the vlogs. I'm not even going to call her name right now, but those who know, know. Everything that has to do with Tory Lanez, I believe that she is in some way compensated to spread these narratives.
I wish I knew
Who
who
they
he was
talking
talking
And
about.
so before the sentence was read in court, she already knew. That's really interesting to me. She already knew because she had discussed it with others, not knowing that it would come back to us. God is my witness. So moving right along, Daystar did not suffer superficial wounds.
Yeah.
He was stabbed 14 times, 5 times in his back, 1 under his left cheekbone. In fact, his jaw was open.
Oh.
He was stabbed twice in the back of his head,
Huh?
and the rest in his torso, arms, and in his chest. It may seem sensational, but thankfully, like Dr. King, it was close to his heart but did not penetrate.
I was thinking more like 50
After
Cent.
that, he was being rushed to a facility nearby in a vehicle in which he said, and I quote, "Dad, I thought it was my last." And having made my peace with God, I said, okay, God, is this how it's supposed to end for me? But God said no. God told him, do not give up. In the car, upon which he turned to the attending officers and he said, you must get me to wherever is the closest place that I can get to. I'm bleeding out here. He didn't even know his lungs had collapsed. All he knows is that he couldn't breathe. He could hardly speak. Upon which the officer turned around and looked at him and said, nah, we got to take him. He has to be airlifted. And thankfully, to God be the glory, he was airlifted. I want to report to you that I am very thankful to all of the attending nurses, doctors in that facility. They have done an amazing job in their professional capacity. I would also like to publicly say thank you to the COs, the correctional officers that we have seen around him. In fact, these guys have been nothing but kind to him. The system is one thing, but guess what? There are people who work in the system.
I was about to say, people are different.
And some of them still have hearts.
The people are not the system.
Some of them still have a conscience. So as I'm
but the system
down
can't corrupt
today,
the people.
I would like to report to all of you who care about Daystar Peterson, the artist Tory Lanz, around the world. The reports in the hospital is that he is doing remarkably well.
Good.
I was told yesterday, because they had already taken out the tubes that were draining the fluids from his lungs, they had already taken them out by the time my wife and I got there. And I was told by the nurse, in his particular condition, normally they would have had to leave those tubes in at least a couple more days. Mm-hmm. But yesterday they took him out because they said he is recovering remarkably. All that is left is for the healing of the wounds. So thank you for all the prayers that have gone up sincerely on behalf of Daystar and my family. We are truly grateful. But this is not over. So I'm reaching out to every prayer warrior around the world who knows what Christ stands for. Please continue to stand with us.
It was good to hear.
As I stated before, Daystar was not drunk on that morning. It was 6:30 in the morning. There was nothing like that. It was an unprovoked attack. I don't want to go into the details of how it went, although I know them, because it is too gory to be describing right now. Mm-hmm. And so as I close today, whatever has been needed to be said has been said. So as I close, I want to quote you David, the king of Israel, who said, "You lead me beside still waters and you restore my soul. You lead me in the path of righteousness for your name's sake. And even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." One of the officers turned to me yesterday and he said, "You would be so proud of your boy. He has been in here and he has been praying." I got there to the hospital the first day, and typical Daystar, he was entertaining those officers. They were laughing. They were just, and he said, "Dad, it only hurts to laugh." But something broke my heart yesterday. When towards the end of our visit, he said, "Dad, why is it that my life has to go through so many trials? Why? Why do I have to experience this?" And that's the note that I want to close on, to tell you that this person they've been trying to paint as a monster, that they were so scared when all of those testimonies came in. People I did not even know that he had secretly done things for. This is a guy, he would do things and not even tell anybody. And one young lady called me and said, "I was struggling. I was diagnosed bipolar. I was struggling my children, said your son offered to pay my rent for 1 year while I could recover. The prosecution at the trial, when all of those testimonies came in and said, oh my God, you think that we were here to hand out the Nobel Peace Prize? And that's how he dismissed it. But as I said on the court steps that day, God records all of it. And I know that my son will have justice. I lastly would like to reach out via this medium to say to the governor of the state of California, sir, it is in your hand to do something about this. You have the power and the means to examine the evidence that has been presented even to the courts. This is a travesty of justice. And to allow my son to go back into that same situation, a kid that when he went to prison, one of the things he has done so far is through his music to open up the cases of over 467 people through his Hands of God project to help families who can't even pay for justice on behalf of their loved ones. There was a post showed up on YouTube recently, a young man saying, I'd like to thank Tory Lanz. I would like to thank Unite the People. I'd like to thank all of them for allowing me to be able to be taken off of 4 life sentences. 4. I'm sorry? Plus, like, I don't even understand that kind of math. How do you say to a human being whose lifespan is 70, 80, plus 74 years? 4 life sentences plus 74. This is who Daystar is, not what they've tried to make you think he is. He never stops seeking to help people, even from behind the prison walls. Governor Newsom, you have the power to bring my son home, and for all of the reasons that went before I even ascended this podium. Sir, you are a family man. You also have children. Please take a moment and look at your child and ask yourself what you would be doing if the evidence was so overwhelming. Would you think that this man should be free because he's innocent? I hope you do. And I hope you do what you need to do. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being patient with me.
That was riveted.
All right, next. First, I want to say if you have
That's all you gotta say to that?
incarcerated,
I had like 5 things to say.
We're going to get back to the
Cassie
Cassie thing shortly.
Illegally sentenced. Contact Unite the People at unitethepeople.org. Give us a call, 888-245-9393, and we may be able to help your loved one. Now what we're going to do, I'm sure we're close to out of time. It's gone too long? All right. If press, if they need any questions. No.
I would like to hear the press questions.
Okay, hold on one second, ma'am.
I'd like to hear that
We're
too.
going to bring up Mr. Walter Roberts from Unite the People. He can answer a few questions, and then we have to cut this short.
Okay, here we go. We can't hear the questions, but hopefully through the answer he'll repeat it.
No, we have not. The appellate case and the writ case is fully briefed. We're just waiting the appellate court's decision. So we haven't gone that step yet because it may not be necessary. As I said in my opening, as further illustrated,
Who does he sound like?
bringing it to light now was made necessary by the events of this week. So no, we had not previously.
He sounds like an old Obama.
We will consider doing that, but we're really asking the governor to do something immediately.
Dog, that's
so
old
not
Obama
really
for
necessary.
sure.
No, we have not.
Very unique fucking audio profile.
All right, next question. TMZ.
You know about any plans to transfer?
We won't know anything about that. That's next.
I actually spoke to Nathan yesterday at the Menendez trial, so he's aware of it, and I suggest all of you tweet him on Twitter or call the office. Also, 2 things. Sean Hawley connected to Jay-Z.
Why you zooming in on them?
The show.
What
You
the
guys
fuck?
talk about that at all? She has connections with Jay-Z, obviously, with the show. And then also, Justin Edison, the former bodyguard and of Megan Thee Stallion, he was her bodyguard who had access to guns. I posted on Twitter, there's a video showing where he's drunk.
It's long ass question, bitch.
Saying he had lots of guns after she allegedly got shot. So, in reference to like the entrance on the gun and where the gun came from, Justin Edison, who actually showed up late to court, he was never talked to. That he's somebody that you look into. So, I don't know. Are you guys doing anything with Sean Hawley?
No. We're appellate counsel. We don't have anything to do with the trial. People who handle the trial and all of that, we don't. We're post conviction
Well,
only.
maybe it's more of a.
So no, we're not doing any of
What
that.
do you call it? The attorney general.
Well, we'll have to deal with that later, man. We don't want to cut everybody short. One last question, and that's it.
Anybody else?
One last question.
You said that it wasn't necessary to have given this new evidence to, the original host.
I did not use that word necessary.
I'm about to say, he didn't say necessary.
Well,
Were you given this information though about the new evidence?
we were provided with this information after we had already filed all of our briefs. We weren't even aware of Mr. Bradley James. That's why it was a few months ago is when we got it.
All right. Well, that.
So what just happened with that last part that was asked to Tory? I think that's a very valid question. They basically said, "Yo, Tory," or they're asking Tory's appellate lawyers, and they said, "Yo, bro, well, if y'all have this exculpatory evidence, which is, if you don't know or you didn't listen to the whole press conference, it's the exculpatory evidence that says, yo, the bodyguard of Kelsey Nicole, who was with Kelsey during the trial, heard her, supposedly, is the bodyguard / driver, heard her say, yeah, I'm the one who shot the gun. Tory really grabbed my hand, and when he grabbed my hand trying to prevent me from shooting her, it shot 2 more times or 3 more times. So that's the supposed exculpatory evidence. What the reporter asked is, well, if you have this exculpatory evidence, Tory has 2 appeals in that could possibly get him out of jail. One is the appeal, or the appeal for the entire case. They've raised objections, or some things weren't raised as objections, and that's becoming a problem. But through the objections and also these procedural errors and also things that maybe the judge should have ruled differently on, they want to get a new trial. If Tory gets a new trial, keep in mind Tory was out on bond. Tory would be released, most likely, right? He would be released from jail, and it's most likely that a prosecutor in L.A. wouldn't even try to retry him again. It's not like the YNW Melly case. The YNW Melly case is a double homicide. They're going to retry him 20 times, okay? They're really going to do that, or they're going to just give him a plea. With the Tory case, the prosecutor, the lead prosecutor, the district attorney is no longer the district attorney, okay? Remember, Trump won, a lot of people changed seats.
Right.
So because it was the last district attorney who really went forward and prosecuted this, if Tory gets a new trial, most likely they won't try to go through that whole process again.
Most
Too expensive.
likely.
You're wasting taxpayers' money, and there's a possibility that Tory could beat it. You probably don't want to do it again. Also, he served some significant time, a year, was it 2 years now? You might just want to be like, yo, we're going to just commute this to whatever.
near
They won't
death.
go through a trial, so Tory will just
mean-
walk free. The second way how he's trying to get out of jail is his second appeal. It's called a writ of habeas corpus. Now, what that is this legal idea that you could submit a writ of habeas corpus to compel the government to tell why someone's freedom or someone's right is taken from them, okay? Which obviously in this situation is his freedom. So it would compel the government saying, okay, despite these things, why is he locked up? Now, what are these things that he submitted in the writ of habeas corpus? For example, hey, y'all didn't test the DNA of other people. Hey, y'all claim there was not more, y'all didn't have more samples for us to do retests with. Y'all didn't do
there's
A,
a
B, blah,
lot.
blah, blah.
There's a lot they could appeal with and retry for and object for. And I didn't even realize that the seats changed for the governor. So that's also a pretty big thing, right? Again, I wasn't following it like beat to beat like I'm following the Diddy case back when it happened, so I'm not nearly as well versed in it. But like, I'm sure having a different governor would also help that a lot. I also find it kind of funny how his dad kind of almost prayed to Trump. He mentioned Trump right next to God. It was kind of crazy. But that's not really gonna change how I feel about his music, though. Like him as an individual, yeah, he needs like proper justice. That's fucked up. If he didn't shoot the bitch in the foot, then why is he in jail, right? And why like it's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. The whole thing's a fucking clown show, and then it happened in an era of other clown shows.